Okay. We're back at it again. Where we left off. Because last time, my stream kept crashing, and then I deleted a bunch of my code, because I came to the conclusion this ain't working out. And I started again. And now I'm looking at this with fresh eyes. I watched Princess Mononoke today, Studio Ghibli movie. Crazy. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Let's look at this. We get the answers. We got the logic for a human winning and a computer winning, which calls on human selection, which calls on get human choice. I don't know what's up with that. And for human choice and computer choice, I put in the human selection and the computer selection. And this up here is the computer choice, which becomes the computer selection. This becomes the human choice. And so, thought about it again, right? This will be that. Right, so because they were saying I should do it like this. I'm just like, why? Ah, okay, because it calls on playground, right? But it'll put in human choice. How would this usually look like, right? If I remember correctly, they had something like return human choice plus computer choice, right? That's not really what I'm looking for. To play one round, what I want is to run the human choice, run their they're saying this is the code is this stuff. I see. Yeah, I did that outside. I don't know if one should do that outside. If the human choice equals these things here, no. If human choice, this stuff. No. That's not how you do that. Okay, I'm gonna write it the way they said I should write it here. Right. I'm fine with that. Right, so I'm putting in those variables from the top, throwing them in here. If these choices equal that, then console log you're the victor. Because human choice beats computer choice. I might be cooking here. Let's look at this. If else. These things here. If yo, can I do that? I'd love to just take these, highlight these three, but I don't think that's how that, nah. Alright, computer choice, nope. Computer choice, computer choice. Then let me isn't it else if else if my stream keeps crashing on Ubuntu. Right, but what I want to do, add to this here. These scenes have different rules, yeah? Yeah, nice. Sick. Audio capture. Audio? Yeah, okay. Just making sure that it's also getting my mic. That would have been crazy if I was just like talking into nothingness the whole time. Okay, we're still here. Console log. We lost this time. beats no. You are the victor. You chose which beats. You lost this one. It chose bets. Which beats. Now for the last one. Else, which is the third option, right? If none of these kind of apply. This is valid. Why is this not valid? Right, okay. Else, declaration or statement expected. Where? We've had this before. Else, return. Else. Else if, blah. Else if. Ah. Yeah, okay. No, little mistakes like that. This is a round. Does this happen? It does. Right, I'm calling on it there. Human selection before initialization. Yo, but then what the hell? Human selection before initialization. Ah, right, okay. Oh! Okay. Okay, wait. No shot. Yeah. Oh. Okay. Yo. Wait. I don't choose anything. Nothing happens. Because nothing happens, dude. Okay. Now we're getting to logging the points. Based on the round winner. Okay. Chill. That's not difficult. I just right? Right, I'll just put it right there. Human score, right? And right here, I'll also just human score. Computer score. Increment, let's see what did they say here again? And returns the value before I was not taking a break. But I am back. Increments and returns the value before incrementing. After incrementing. Yeah, that's what I want. And returns the value. Yes, 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 yes. But that's not a console log thing, right? I'm not logging the... Does it run that? Because I know that if I log it, I learned that last time, it runs the function. So if I call a function here that increments the score, it'll definitely keep that. Let's just find out. Nothing happened. What you mean? No, 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 no. No, 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 no. No, don't do this. What you mean? Nothing. So what I think might be happening, I might have missed a scenario here, or I can test it. Right, okay, console dot log human nodes rock. I see. Okay, bet. So yeah, that makes sense. We chose the same thing. They're not cowards. It's just no one gets a point. What's a cool thing to write here? Stand still. You chose human choice. It chose computer choice. Okay, I think this is what they meant, right, here. When you assign a function to a variable, the return value of that function is assigned to the variable. Accessing the variable afterward will only provide the assigned value. It doesn't recall the function. You need to recall the choice functions to get new choices for each round. You need to recall the choice functions to get new choices for each round. Rework your previous functions or create more helper functions necessary. You might want to change the return values to something more useful. You need to recall the choice functions to get new choices for each round. Rework your previous functions. If necessary, you may want to change the return values, these here, to something more useful. Because when I call it, it'll become one of those things and not call it again. I think that's what they mean, right? Because they're saying, make a play round function, throw that stuff in the play round function. First of all, we made it happen. You lost scissors beats paper. It shows. Right, I don't like that. Let's not do it shows, let's do you chose human choice, which loses to computer choice. Computer choice. All right. Rock, which loses to paper. Yeah. Lit. Now. Is it running again? Yeah, alright. I'll say in, right, restructure. Dude, I restructured the code, man. No, okay. Let's do it. Let's do it here. Restructure the code to work. Restructure the code. Restructure the logic. Simplify and be done. And then we detail what we did. Let's look at what we did. I put the logic for the game into the playground function. I added the variables, parameters, added parameters, made arguments, made playground function include as this is the note, so I don't know if it has to be made playground function include the necessary logic, change the naming from created parameters. These are arguments. No, these are arguments. Right? JavaScript arguments. No, that's the object. Yeah, okay. Those are the arguments. Those are the parameters. Made play around function include necessary logic created. Play around parameters and arguments. Instead of having the logic as a constant. Is that a good, succinct way to let this be known? I feel like, I think it's crazy because I was struggling so much yesterday. I really wasn't getting anywhere. But I came back, and I think it's wild, dude, because I came back, and I'm just like, it all just makes sense. It all makes sense. Sometimes just taking just a dumb nap is what you need. Good. And declares a winner at the end. Okay. Let's make a play game. Function. Play game. Move your player on function and score variables. Which is like variables. Those are my parameters. Then these are my variables. Why would they have to be in there? I don't know. So that they're declared inside the play game function. Play 5 rounds by calling play round 5 times. But why can't I just do that? Like, sure, all of this, but like, why can't I just... Wait, let me finish this up, and then I'll take a break. Okay. Okay, bro. Okay. Fine. I concede. Yeah, okay. That's fine. Right, I'll put... No, wait a second. I'll put you... me. Okay. Hey, don't get mad. Don't get mad. Play round. And then I'll call the play round function 5 times. And the same thing will happen, right? No, I feel like that makes sense. It's because these constants are there, man. It's because these constants are there, and they're making me call on that, right? Look right here. Look right here. I'm gonna set a breakpoint here. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Sick. Cool. Cool. Yeah. It's fun to know that now. It's really fun to know that now. I like that. It's like this little progress, bit by bit. I love that. Okay. It doesn't answer my question though. It comes later, right? This is what they're saying here. Your code here. Okay. So I can still call this down here. Call this, define this down there. Because it would returns it under global. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Interesting. It makes sense, right? Because it would call this outside first, because it runs these things. This is what I remember from the stack. How a stack is called, right? Because basically, don't know if maybe you're new here. Maybe you're looking at this in the future. But JavaScript calls everything from, it reads the entire script, and then it looks at what's called like the global functions. So everything that's set outside of things, and it runs those things first. And then it looks at what's happening within functions, runs those things. You know what I mean? But I think I can do this. I don't know if this is clean, because I don't know if I can use human selection outside of, right, because now this is new. Right here, look at that. Human selection is something I can now define again. It doesn't run by anything. So if human selection is not defined. Otherwise, if this was outside, let's look at this. Human selection changes. Yeah. I'll keep it inside for now. I'm fine with that because I'm not using it anywhere outside. But I wish I knew how I could, set the constant without having to call the prompt basically. Maybe I can run these things as a function. Put them in here. Maybe. I'm gonna take my 5-minute break. And I'll be back in 5. I don't know. My brother cooked something absolutely diabolical. Absolutely diabolical. Absolutely crazy. Now, it's said that if I do this, it'll just spit out. Ah. This is what they were saying now. This is what they were saying. Because, let's look at this. Because when I call get human choice, it returns one of these things, which then makes the get human choice function equal, in this case paper, but whatever return I get. Can I return answer? No. When you assign a call to a variable, the return value of the... Yeah, okay, I get this. You need to recall the choice functions to get new choices for each round. You need to recall the choice functions. It doesn't recall the function. Accessing the variable afterward will only provide... But why would you make me do that then? Why would you make me do that? Rework your previous functions or create more helper functions if necessary.
You know?
Back. And ready. Let's look at this. Rework your previous functions or create more helper functions if necessary. Specifically, you may want to change the return values to something more useful. You need to recall the choice functions to get new choices for each round. Because, okay, it's not about the function, it's about the variable. The variable becomes the answer of this function. Why did you make me do that? Like, then what's the point? Rework your previous functions or create more helper functions. If necessary, specifically you may want to change the return values. Rework your previous functions and create more helper functions if necessary. Rework your previous functions or create more helper functions. Okay, a helper function. Why would I need a helper? Okay, wait. Let's look at the problem. The problem being, when I call this again a second time, it's giving me this answer, right? Which is now defined because I made it the constant, right? So what I really want to be getting here is I want to be getting this based on a new one of these. One easy solution would be to make this 5 times with a different variation and put it here every time. Maybe I can make a function that does that. Make a function that asks me for a selection 5 times, asks me for the choice 5 times, right? I would have a function that asks me for the get human choice 5 times. Gives me a different one. The play round would then call on the answer of that function. You need to recall the choice functions to get new choices for each round. Rework your previous functions or create more helper functions. You may want to change the return values to something more useful. See, what I'm guessing is everyone's code looked like this. I think straight up every single person's code looked exactly like this. Right, let's do this again. Here, let's do 2. Let's do 2. Right, okay. Because it keeps saying that it shows the same thing. Rework your previous functions. How could I rework my previous function? Right, how could I change the return value to something more useful? I could take the return value. How can I change the return value so that this thing gives me a different answer every time? I could make it, okay, see, what I could do here, I could make it return a random value no. I may want to change the return values to something more useful. Rework your previous functions. Okay. This was me logging out. Log back in. One does get distracted at times. Rework your previous functions. You need to recall the choice function to get new choices for each round. Then just maybe not make this a constant, but a function. Because they're saying when you assign a function to a variable, the return value function is assigned to the variable. Okay, the return value of that function is assigned to the variable. And they're saying make this return something so that return rock and get human choice. Return rock. Rework your previous function to create more helper functions. And rework your previous function or create more. Specifically, you may want to change the return values to something more useful. I want to change the return values to something that doesn't make the human selection variable a string. I don't want it to be a string. Right. Because when it's a string, no. Yeah, because when it's a string, it'll just keep giving the same thing back. So I could make it return the function. This feels so wrong. Why? Damn. It makes sense though, because when I call on that, it calls on itself. Man. Okay, that didn't work. Change the return function so that the variable... Okay, I'm missing something obvious again. I think they taught me this, probably. The way I'm guessing how this works, right? They taught me this somewhere along the lines. Rework your previous functions or create more helper functions if necessary. Specifically, you may want to change the return values to something more useful. You need to recall the choice functions to get new choices. create more helper functions. Yo, they're saying though, they are saying, because I can run a function. I can run a function. Why don't I just run it on... The return value of that function is assigned to the variable. Okay, to me it's clear. To me what I want is clear. I know I could just put it in here. Okay, you know what? Let's just maybe do that. Ah. Now, I could run a function. I can run a function that gets me the human choice and then puts that human choice as the human selection. Let's just do that for a second. Let's just do that for a second. Function called human selection. Human selection gets called here every time, takes human choice. This puts... Yo, I feel like this makes sense. You know what I mean? Is that what you're saying? I'm fine with that. Yeah. Okay, I already had it up there. Computer selection. I want that to be computer selection as a function. Right, and do that for me. Yeah. And let's make you a function. I want you, when called, to run get computer choice, right? I feel like this makes sense. Undefined. Damn. Why? Yo, that's crazy. That's crazy. And it still takes it as undefined. It's still... Right. You chose undefined. Why? Why? Why when I choose rock, does this still throw undefined at me? Void. Human selection, void. Why is this void? I'm giving you a return, right? I'm giving you the answer to my function. What does it say here? Also void. Interesting. Even though this gives me back rock, paper, or scissors. This gives me back void. I don't know if I learned about this. Is it like, does it run this first? What if I put this outside? I don't think that's the solution. They want me to change the return values, right? That's what they want. They said change the return values. Okay, let's go back. You may want to change the return values to something more useful. What does that mean? Something that doesn't... What can I... Okay, a helper function could take the string, take the answer, take the answer, give the answer here, and call again? No. Because then if I called it once, it would put that into here, and then it would call again, and put that new thing into here. Right? back, back, back. Fresh, I'm looking at let right now. Let's just do that real quick. Feeling a little freaky. Damn. Make the human selection Can I just run this multiple times? Right? Like, can I make this a can I make this a function? They want me to change the return values. I don't think I can make this a function. Right? Because I want to know though, if I do this again. Let me declare this. Because these are declared in here, right? These are locally declared. Let's look at this again, right? Because when I say human console.log human selection, it shouldn't let me do it. Yeah. Because then I can make this a function. Right. Then I can make the human selection happen. Okay, wait. Fuck. I'm losing my train of thought. Because then I can make the human selection happen within a function. I can make both of these happen within a function and just recall this function every time. And then what the function will output is both this and that. But that's not what you want. That's not what you guys are telling me to do. You guys are telling me to change the return values to something more useful. What does that mean? You need to recall the choice functions to get new choices for each round. Make a function that calls on the choice functions something more useful would when you assign a function call to a variable. The return value of that function is assigned to the variable. Accessing the variable afterward will only provide the assigned value. It doesn't recall the function. You need to recall the choice functions to get new choices for each round. Okay, wait. No, I've done this. I've done this. And that's not how that works. No. What? What do you mean? What do you mean? Let me get this choice. Expect. Why? What do you mean? What do you mean? What? Let's look at this. Can I do it this way around? I can't. Because here I'm doing the same thing. I'm calling, I'm function, whatever, function, whatever. Let me do that. You know what I'm learning? You know what actually also I could have done? I think I could have put this answer part here outside and said, whatever answer you take it from the prompt, like I did here. Does that help me? I don't think so. I do not think so. Because my problem right now is that when I call this, it stays one thing and doesn't redefine itself. And I would like it to I would like it to return something that prompts a redefinition of human selection. Can I do and? Those are conditions. Can I make it redefine itself? My best bet, I feel like, is to get human choice. Right, but my problem with that is that I'm just in a loop then. Make it something more useful. Something more useful would get a new choice. Would prompt a new. And right, this doesn't happen. I don't know why. Bro, what? Okay. Okay. It's fine. It's fine. It's okay. It happens. Hey, we can still try the idea. Didn't change anything. I guess it makes sense, right? Because, yeah, this becomes this return value. What if I just don't do that? What if I just didn't? It wouldn't do anything. See, I don't want it to return the same thing. Void. Alright. I'm happy I got this. I don't quite understand what else they want me to do here. When you assign a function to a variable, return the return value of that function is assigned to the variable. My problem, clearly, is that my variable isn't redefined. My problem, let me write this down. Let me problem. Variable does not redefine itself. Reason, variable takes on assigned value from function. Solution, right? Recall choice function to get new choice. Question. This is my question. How to recall choice function. What I want to happen is that I recall the choice function every time. What I want to happen is that my human selection changes every time I get a human choice. What I want to happen is that when I call play round, it calls get a human choice. I want a function here, right? To me, it sounds like I call play round, it calls get human choice, takes that, puts that into here, lets this run. Right. I mean, can't I just do that? No. What? Why not? Get human choice. What happens here? It gives me that answer. Right? It gives me that answer. Isn't that what I want? Do I have that? Yeah, I have that in. I didn't change anything about my return values, bro. I don't know what y'all... Right. Like... I think it's interesting. Ah, because of the two lowercase thing. Okay. That's fine. I can change that later. I could take this away. I could just put this somewhere else. Honestly, I could just put this somewhere else. Right? And say what do they say here? Make something case insensitive. Yeah, okay, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's case insensitive. I'm happy with that for now. Right. Play 5 rounds. Keep track of the scores. Declares a winner at the end.